Hi, welcome back. In this video, we're going to start implementing Program 6. So the first thing I did is I took the my Program 5 code and put it into the compiler. Now, if your Program 5, like I said before, if your Program 5 is working, use your Program 5. But if you need a little help, you can use my Program 5. This is a small program, so I gave you a lot of big skeleton because this is a smaller program. And the focus of this assignment is understanding input-output parameters. So we're going to change some of our functions. For example, this function right here from a function that asks and that declares, asks, and gets and returns a character to a function that's going to get the character value through an input-output parameter by using a pointer, or in other words, by using the address. So the function that calls the function that calls this function and the option list function, the option list pointer function, are both going to share the same location and share the variable. They're sharing the value and the location in memory. There's not going to be two copies of a character. That character itself is going to be shared between two different functions. So it's very important to understand this concept before working on this assignment. So let's make sure before we get started that it works, that I gave you working code. And it allows me to pick a snack. So it's initialized to $5. Those are the snack options. Let's see what my balance is. There's $5. So again, we're not using file input and output, so there should be no file input and output on Program 6. And then I can make a purchase. So I'll just get a coffee, and then I'm going to quit. So, I mean, you can practice some more to make sure it works and go through it and make sure you understand what's going on. But for me, I feel pretty confident that it works, so I'm going to get started right now to implement and change those functions. So the first function here is the greeting function, and that function will stay the same. So the next thing I want to do is go down to my main function, because the way that your program starts to execute is it's going to start right here in the very beginning of the main function. So now that we've learned about functions, programmer-defined functions, and how things work in the language C, it doesn't start executing at the top here. The preprocessor directives up here give information about what's going on in the program and the different libraries that will be needed for the program. Now I've added this one here, which if you're not using Visual Studio, you will not have that one. That is required though if you're using Visual Studio. If you're using scanf or any kind of file processing, it will not compile without this right here. The second one I added is because now Visual Studio has decided to give a warning every time there is a scanf statement that doesn't return anything, and we're not going to check every time for scanf warnings, so you can disable this warning by putting this here. So if I will show you what will happen if I get rid of it. And if I check my error list, so I happen to have 3 scanf statements in my program. So every time I have a scanf statement, I'm getting a warning. The warning is a 6031. So I don't want to look that up. So what I did is I just put this preprocessor directive up here that says to ignore those warnings. So my compiler will now ignore those warnings, and my feedback window is a very important place for me to get feedback, and therefore I don't want to have unnecessary warnings there. Another thing, don't forget to add your name, date, and a description at the top. Also, don't remove the function comments. Don't remove comments from your code. The comments are very important and they need to be there. So when we're going to get to our main function, we're going to notice that the first thing that's going to happen is we're going to declare a character, and we're going to declare a double for the balance and initialize the balance to $5. Then we're going to do our greeting. Our greeting is going to be the same, so therefore we don't need to make any modifications to it. The next thing is we have this option list function. This option list function is going to be replaced by an option list pointer function, where this option list function has a character return type, and that character will then be assigned to choice in main. We're going to change it. We're going to change it so the option list pointer function is going to have a void return type, and it's going to take a character address as its argument. So that is address of choice in main. Now, if you don't understand, like I said, if you don't understand what I just did, what you need to do is go back and go through the module 7 content. So I'm going to go here to my assignment that I have here, and this is the new function. Option list is now going to become option list pointer. So I'm going to replace my option list function with a function called option list pointer. So if you remember, let's take a look at them together. Oh, I gotta go back and get it again. All right. Okay, so the option list function had a character return type. This function is going to use what's called an input-output parameter. The address of the character is going to come in, it's going to be modified inside the function, and that therefore is going to be modified both inside of the option list pointer function and also modified back in the main function. So we can get rid of this one, and it will be replaced with this one. So now we need to go down and modify our function definition. All right, so this is a function definition. We remove the semicolon. It's not a prototype, and we make sure we have a block of code. So in this situation, the argument that comes to the function, or the parameter, is a character address. So we don't need to declare another character in here. All we need to do here is we need to print all of the options to the user. And if you notice, the return type is void, so we don't need to return it either. But what we do need to do is we still need to scan in this function. So we're going to scan into the variable that comes in, choice pointer, but we're not going to scan into the address of choice pointer, because choice pointer, if you take a look at this little asterisk right here, this little asterisk indicates that choice pointer already is an address. So since the second argument to scanf is an address, we are going to get rid of that ampersand right there, and we're going to pass choice pointer here. Choice pointer is an address. That address is going to be shared by this function, and when scanf scans in the character, it's going to go into choice pointer, which is an address, and at the same time, it's going to go into the address of choice in main. So choice in main is a variable that has a location. This ampersand right here indicates the location, that this is the address of that variable. And so option list pointer and the main function are both going to share this address, and so we're going to be able to access the character choice in main in both the main function and in the option list pointer. But we don't need to do anything with it in the option list pointer function other than give the address to scanf. The user puts in the letter. If the user puts in like an S, then choice in main will be a S. If the user, so go back here, if the user enters S, then it would be, then the choice in main would be S. If the user enters O, choice in main would be O, etc. Now, if you wanted to print it back and see what it was, just to practice, you could echo the input here and say you entered. And the way that you would do that, you would use %C because it's a character. But you wouldn't print choice in main because choice in main is an address or a location, just like FAU is at 777 Glades Road. So choice pointer would be 777 Glades Road, but we need to get what's at 77 Glades Road. So we need to get to the value at choice pointer. So you could echo it back just for practice. You entered the value at choice pointer. So I'm going to go ahead and leave that here. You don't need to put that, but because I want to test it, I'm going to go ahead and leave it here. So let's go back to our main function. We also need to change this function call. So this is our initialization for our loop. This is the test for our while loop. And then this is the update for our while loop. So the user is going to enter a letter. If the letter is Q, then we're going to stop. If the user enters anything other than Q, we're going to do something with it, and then we're going to process it, and then we're going to ask for another one. So this function, toLower, we're not dealing with any kind of address here, so it will stay the same. We take the variable, the letter that the user entered. Remember that the letter that the user entered is choice in main. The address, or where that is located, is the address of choice in main. So this entire thing with the ampersand would be 777 Glades Road, or the address, and this right here would be the value that is located there. So this should work. So let's test it and see if it works. Okay. X, you entered X, that's not valid. A, you entered A. And Q, you entered Q. And something happened to our balance. So I'm not really sure what happened to our balance. And let's go see if we can figure out what's wrong with our balance. Oh, I know what's wrong with our balance. So let's try it again. You can always assume the user is going to put the right. So if I enter A and then I entered something like this, then I entered Q, it messed up our balance because after I entered A, I didn't update it. So that's good that that happened, because I can demonstrate to you that you can assume that the user will always, in my programs in this class, unless I say otherwise, you can always assume that the user will enter the correct data type. All right, so in the next video, we will finish up the rest of the other 3 functions.